Something that can freak out airline passengers, turbulence. Sometimes it's not serious, and other times it can be downright dangerous. The Savvy Stews, Bobby Laurie and Galen David, are here with some tips for travelers and to share some of their own stories, because I'm sure you guys have a lot of stories about this. Of course, it can be kind of a nerve-wracking thing for passengers when this is going on. You've said that there are a couple different levels of turbulence. Can you explain that?
Yeah, especially when we're going through flight attendant training, they teach us that there's 3 different levels. There's light, moderate, and severe. And the way that they explained it to us was like coffee or Coke inside of a cup. In light turbulence, it's just rocking back and forth.
Okay.
In moderate turbulence, it's almost at the rim, almost ready to come out of the cup. And at severe, it's all over your face.
Okay.
And everywhere else, and dripping from the ceiling.
Okay. Well, that's a good way for passengers to realize, like, okay, this is just light turbulence right now. So
it's a good measure.
So that would be one of the warning signs, I would imagine. What might be some other warning signs?
Well, one of the major problems is we get no warning signs. So that's why when they say, make sure that your seatbelt's fastened, you really do have to listen. I mean, I think about it when they say it, and I put my seatbelt on and make sure that it's tight, because if turbulence creeps up and just surprises a pilot and they've not been able to warn the passengers, I mean, that's when people that are unfastened or walking about the cabin when the seatbelt sign is on can hit the ceiling. Things that are like the carts in the aisle, I mean, those carts can actually come up off the ground and the contents on top. So everybody, that's why when they say there's turbulence and the flight attendants put things away, when you see the flight attendants putting them away, you know.
Now, there might not be warnings, or you might not think that there's warning signs, but the pilots might have been warned that there is impending turbulence because of the planes ahead of them. They all keep in contact throughout the day, throughout their flights. And they'll say, oh, you know, it's moderate coming up, and sometimes the pilots will be able to deviate around that to avoid it.
Okay. So really, what should passengers do when they're, obviously, keep your seatbelts on. What if they're up and about and they're not in their seat at this point?
I had a very strange situation where, you know, as flight attendants, you're always, the constant battle is fasten your seatbelt, and we can't force you to do it, we just have to ask and remind you to do it. And there was this group of 4 guys that didn't want to listen to me, and they came to the back to go to the bathroom, and we hit clear turbulence, and everything went everywhere. I mean, I was holding onto the door and the side of the wall myself, and now they're like 4 little kids, like, what do I do, what do I do? So I'm like, just sit on the floor. So just sit on the floor, and then you put your arms underneath the armrest, and you can restrain yourself down that way.
Okay.
Because if the plane's going back and forth and up and down, you will be able to, you know, keep yourself in one position.
Right, so if you're walking through the aisle and there's not a seat that you can get into, sit on the floor. But otherwise, jump into a seat and put a seatbelt on.
They even teach us to jump into someone's lap.
Do they really?
Yes, jump into someone else's lap and have them hold you if it's that bad.
Now, how's that happen to you guys?
Well, you might use other excuses to jump in. Just
right. Whoopsie.
Oh, I think there was turbulence.
Okay, so, and you mentioned it just a little bit before, that if you aren't in your seat, I mean, turbulence, it's not really going to be, it's not going to damage anything else but yourself if you're out of your seat. I mean, so we shouldn't really be afraid of turbulence.
As far as the airplane is concerned.
As far as the airplane is concerned. But if you're up out of your seat, that's where the danger can come in.
Right, and the aircraft are really built to withstand, I mean, just a major amount of turbulence.
Yeah.
And the wings are really made to flex and so forth. So it's really, the chances of your airplane going down because of turbulence are, you know, very small, very small. In fact, we found really one major crash that was actually pinned to turbulence. You know, it's as far as structurally damaging the aircraft to the point that it went, so you can really feel secure.
One, and in the 70s, so it hasn't happened since then.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure you guys have stories of turbulence. Do you have any good ones?
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you. I know. I was deadheading down to South America, sitting next to this passenger that was really a strapping guy. And in the middle of the night, we hit turbulence unexpectedly. And let me just tell you, when you hit severe turbulence that will scare anyone, this guy let out a scream that was like, it sounded like a little 3-year-old girl on the playground.
Really?
Yes. And and you know what the bad part is?
What?
That everybody in that first class cabin where I was deadheading looked at me and thought for sure that it came from me. They didn't even think for a second it came from this guy.
I would have believed it myself.
So I had to hang my head down for the rest. They're like, this was a flight attendant that screamed like that. So I know.
Couldn't you have said, wasn't me?
I wanted
wasn't
to.
Me?
I wanted to.
It was this guy over here who looks like The Rock. I mean, that's what I'm picturing,
That's
right?
what it was like, yeah.
And in that same situation I just told you about, where I had those guys in the back who were down standing themselves, I walked through the cabin with a stack of paper towels afterwards, because that was the type of bump that everything goes everywhere. And there was this woman with Coke dripping out of her hair and off her face, and she was just laughing, and I was like, do you need a couple of these? And she goes, I was right here about ready to take a sip when we hit it, and it just splashed all over her face.
A Coke facial.
A Coke facial.
Yeah.
I don't know if the sugar will do anything for you, though.
I think that's good. No. You say you like Turbulence. It puts you to sleep?
I do. I really like it. Like when I'm sitting down as a passenger, because of course you can't sleep when you're working, I'm out. It just rocks me to sleep. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. I like it too, but you know what? It takes all kinds.
Yeah, that's true.
I know. That's why you
And if you don't like it,
do.
get a glass of wine.
That's right.
Makes everything better.
Always a silver lining.
Right?
Thank you guys so much. For more tips from Bobby and Galen, check out their website, savvystews.com. Thanks, you guys.
You're watching more Good Day Oregon